Hi, Sarah Picaro here. Today's video is going to be about a term called emotophobia. And if you Google it, you will most likely find the definition for fear of vomiting because phobia means fear. But emotophobia is something very different. We're going to get into emotophobia today, its definition, how it can be impacting you, and the 10 most common distorted thoughts and self-defeating patterns. Everyone that I work with gets stuck in these thought patterns and these negative loops and comes to me because they say, Sarah, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm ready to get out of this because I'm ready to finally begin living my life. And that's difficult to do, especially if you are experiencing what's called emotophobia. Emotophobia, by definition, is an abnormal or pathological fear of emotions, particularly those thought of as negative or non-productive emotions. So how in the world can you get by in life if you're afraid of negative emotions? Because we live in a world where, anything can trigger us, right? If you're driving down the street and someone cuts you off, or your boss even walks by your desk and gives you a look, they don't even have to say anything. People can be in your world and in your presence and not even have to say anything, and you can have a negative reaction or a negative thought. And if you're living with the fear of that, that significantly impacts every single area of your life, particularly the thoughts that you have about yourself. And our thoughts dictate our feelings, and our feelings dictate our actions. So when we're feeling negative thoughts or feelings, then we do things to try and feel more positive because the mind will always work to move us towards pleasure and away from pain. And if you're living with emotophobia and this deeply rooted fear and pain of negative feelings, then everything in your life is going to be impacted. So emotophobia is an abnormal fear, of emotions, or those thoughts that are considered negative or non-productive. You may have feelings or thoughts of like, there needs to be a logical reason why I'm upset. Being upset is not okay, and I need to fix this. And many people get stuck in that fixing it mode. What do I need to do to fix this? Because it's paralyzing. Fear can be paralyzing, and it can be something that significantly impacts your health, your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, your well-being, the ability to even think about doing anything other than completely checking out or numbing out to avoid feeling that fear that you're feeling from this emotophobia. So we're going to get into the most common 10 self-defeating beliefs and other fears that are connected with this emotophobia. So emotophobia is connected with these 10 common self-defeating beliefs that we're going to get into in just a moment. And the first one is emotional perfectionism. So if you're experiencing emotophobia, you can feel physically afraid of these negative feelings or perceptions of negative feelings, feel that you need to fix them, and that can lead to emotional perfectionism. You have to be perfect at everything all the time. So you put this mask on and you just smile through everything, but you feel internally you're dying. You feel like you're a fake or you're a fraud. You can be smiling on the outside, and everyone can even tell you, oh my gosh, you're so strong. I hear this all the time from clients. Other people tell me I'm just so strong, and they don't know how I do it, and they look up to me. But inside, I feel like I'm dying. I feel so weak. I feel like I'm barely holding on by a thread. And that can be from this emotional perfectionism. You have to look like nothing bothers you, that you can make it through anything, that you have to be strong because no one else is there. So it all falls on your shoulders. And how much longer can you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders before you completely collapse under that weight? Sadly, that's when most people connect with me to do the inner work to heal from that, because they're realizing they can't carry that weight any longer, and the significance of the effect it's going to have on their lives and the way that that's going to impact everyone else's lives around them. So one of the most common self-defeating beliefs, especially with people who suffer from emotophobia, is this emotional perfectionism, and this belief and this story that's running through their mind. I should always be happy. I should always be in control of my emotions. So when they have an outburst, when they get triggered, when they lose it, they beat themselves up. And they think, well, if I just beat myself up enough, or if I beat myself to a certain point, then I'll stop doing that and that will fix it. But it won't. I mean, just like physically, if you get beat up, you're just going to be broken and bruised. So how is that going to help you grow emotionally as well? The answer is it's not. So the most common self-defeating belief, especially with people who experience emotophobia, is emotional perfectionism, that I have to be in control of my emotions. And so what happens when you get triggered because of this, I have to be in control of my emotions, is that you shove it down, you push it down, you stuff it down. Sooner or later, it's going to come out and express itself. And what is unexpressed emotionally will express itself physically. So many people that I work with have physical ailments, physical conditions that have emotional connections. Please don't wait until it gets to that point, because then the turmoil that you're going to go through is far, far greater. It's best to deal with it right when it occurs. That is something that we learn along this journey as well. The second most common self-defeating belief, especially for people who suffer from emotophobia, is performance perfectionism. They have to be perfect at what they perform at. And oftentimes it started when they were younger. It started when they were children. Perhaps you played a sport growing up and your parents were there cheering you on, but you felt that if you shot a basket and you missed it, or if you shot a goal and you missed it, that you were a failure, that you weren't good enough. So this performance perfectionism, now there are things that you can control. You can control how you perform at work. And so you give everything to work. Maybe you're working 50, 60, 70 hours a week and your relationships are taking a backseat. They're failing. You feel with this performance perfectionism, I must never fail. And I must never make a mistake. And so when you do make a mistake, instead of seeing it as an opportunity to learn and to grow and see what can be different next time, again, you beat yourself up because of this performance perfectionism, because you don't want to make a mistake. You don't want to fail, because that is a negative feeling and you have a fear of those negative feelings or emotions. The next one is perceived perfectionism. So what is perfect besides perception, right? I mean, I can look at something and go, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Someone else can come along and go, oh, that's horrible. Are you kidding me? In order for it to be perfect, this needs to be changed, that needs to be changed. You take that away, you need to add this, then it will be perfect. So it's all about perception. But people with a self-defeating belief of perceived perfectionism, they have this belief and these thoughts that they get stuck in, that people will not love and accept me as flawed and vulnerable. So if I'm vulnerable, if I am the real me, people will not love me, people will not accept me. They will only love and accept me if I'm perfect. So this perceived perfectionism becomes a self-defeating belief that people with emotophobia live through, this lens that they're viewing their life through. The next one is a fear of disapproval or criticism. So again, we will run away from things that have us feel those negative feelings. The thoughts are, I need everybody's approval to be worthwhile. And this can show up in a relationship with a partner, with a significant other. It can show up in relationships with friends, with parents, with siblings, with colleagues. It can show up anywhere. This fear of disapproval or criticism. What are they going to think about me? I need everyone to like me. So this fear of disapproval or criticism and this belief of I need everyone's approval to be worthwhile. Well, we all know logically, not everyone's going to like us, right? And we can say, yeah, I know that. And there's a part in your mind that goes, but, and then that's where the self-defeating belief significantly can impact you and lead to excruciating experiences. You may not let it be seen on the outside, but internally you're beating yourself up because of all of this. The next self-defeating belief is the fear of rejection. If I'm not loved, then my life is not worth living. So say you're in a relationship, things are going well, and then for whatever reason, the relationship ends. I mean, I've even worked with people who it didn't end on a bad note. It ended on a note of this person got an incredible job opportunity. They've been together for a year. Yeah, they said, I love you, but this person took that job opportunity and moved, and then that ended the relationship. But the self-defeating belief of this fear of rejection, and it wasn't actually a personal rejection. It was this other person took an opportunity to better their lives. It's something they've always wanted to do even before this relationship came into their life. But this fear of rejection, if I'm not loved, then life is not worth living. And after that relationship ends, you try and busy yourself, you try and distract yourself, maybe you even try getting into other relationships, but you're always living with that fear of rejection, that if I'm not loved, then life is not worth living. And so maybe you find yourself just entering into relationships and relationships and relationships to try and mask that fear. Well, that will only ever lead down to a road of even more heartache and heartbreak, and trying to avoid those negative thoughts and feelings that emotophobia causes. So the next self-defeating belief that it leads into is the fear of being alone. Surprise, surprise, surprise. If I'm alone, then I'm bound to feel miserable and unfulfilled. That's a belief that can be running in the background of someone's mind. And so they have a really difficult time being home alone. And when they are home alone, they're busy, busy, busy. The TV's on, the music's on, they have a podcast going. They're not actually alone with their thoughts. And they're on their phone trying to make plans with other people. Hey, what are you doing? Let's get together. Let's go out. What are you up to tonight? So this fear of being alone, because his belief says, if I'm alone, then I'm bound to feel miserable and unfulfilled. The most happy and content people are happy and content when they're in the presence of others and when they're in the presence of themselves. But it's belief that alone equals feelings of misery and unworthiness. And they don't see it as they're with themselves, they see it as alone. So they're taking themselves out of the equation. So no wonder with that disconnect, that feeling is there, that emotophobia. So you're connected to other things, external things, and that's just going to lead to feelings of self-defeat. So the next self-defeating belief, and I'm looking down because I've got these written down, I can't memorize all of them, is the fear of failure. And with the fear of failure, the thought that runs through the mind is my worthiness depends on my achievements. So these are ultra successful, ultra independent people. They've got a whole resume, a whole list, a whole slew of accomplishments and achievements, because the belief that's running in their mind, because of this fear of failure, is that their worthiness depends on their achievements or their attractiveness or their status or their intelligence. That's why people will run out and get all kinds of surgeries done to look and seem and appear more attractive. Externally, they can look beautiful, but internally, they feel that they're so ugly. And that can lead into that addictive pattern behavior and cycles because of this belief that their worthiness depends on their achievements, their looks, their intelligence, their status. I've worked with people who have multiple degrees. I mean, engineers, doctors, lawyers, and still it's not enough. It doesn't satisfy that inner fear of failure, because they feel like they're failing, letting their parents down if they don't get a job that is a certain status, or a job that has a certain income attached to it or connected with it. So another common self-defeating belief is conflict phobia. So emotophobia can be connected to conflict phobia. People who love each other shouldn't fight. So when they're in relationships, anytime there's conflict, there's a fear, that conflict phobia. Oh my gosh, we shouldn't fight. If we really loved each other, we wouldn't fight. What? There is not a single relationship on this planet, if it's healthy, that hasn't had a constructive argument. And sometimes it's in the labeling as a fight, a phobia of fights. Well, not everyone's going to agree 100% of the time, and you shouldn't, because then that means it's just a clone of you, and you didn't get into a relationship with someone who's a clone of you. You got into a relationship with someone who's not you. I mean, don't even get me started with narcissists. I mean, that's a whole nother subject, and I've got lots of videos on that as well. But conflict phobia is for people who experience emotophobia, are afraid of conflict because there's negative feelings connected with conflict, and they think that people who love each other shouldn't fight. And so this person with emotophobia can be the person in a relationship that's just spineless, that's just a jellyfish, because They don't want to stand up for themselves or stick up for themselves or say anything that might cause an argument, a fight, or any kind of conflict because of this fear. Well, this fear of being alone, this fear of failure. If that relationship ends, then I got another failed relationship. And so I'm not going to make any waves. I'm not going to cause any conflict in this relationship. There's a very real phobia and fear of conflict in relationships. Again, emotophobia is connected as one of the self-defeating beliefs is this feeling that I should not be angry, I should not be anxious, I should not be jealous, I should not be vulnerable or feel inadequate. Well, we all go through life feeling inadequate at times, feeling jealous at times, feeling vulnerable, feeling weak, feeling angry, feeling afraid, feeling disappointed. But emotophobia is the fear of all of those things. So if you're afraid of negative feelings, we all feel feelings all the time, and they're linked to our thoughts. And on average, we've got 60,000 thoughts a day. So if the negative ones are connected with the fear, imagine what that's doing internally to your body. When you get afraid of something and your heart starts racing, you can't breathe. I mean, everything biologically is impacted. It can feel like it can shut down, it can freeze, or it can make you want to run away. So you constantly want to run away from all these things. Where are you going to run to where those things aren't? In order to be able to be a healthy person, you've got to be able to manage and move through those feelings and those emotions without fear. The next self-defeating belief is entitlement. Having this thought that people should always be the way that I expect them to be. Well, I hate to tell you this, but if you are living with that sense of entitlement that people should always be the way that I expect them to be, you're going to be living with a lot of disappointment because we're all different. We can have expectations, but when those expectations are unmet and that causes feelings of anger and disappointment, and you're living with emotophobia and you're afraid of those, oh man, what a life is that, right? So I hope that maybe this video has shined some light on what you're experiencing. And if you're feeling that you're living with emotophobia, whether it's been diagnosed or not, and again, if you Google it, you'll see an E instead of an O, and it'll bring up the fear of vomiting. That's completely different. But if you're living with these self-defeating beliefs and feel like, wow, maybe I've got emotophobia and I don't know what to do about it, then I would love to connect with you. See if we're a good fit to work together one-on-one, or possibly, in a group setting. I've got that available as well through my online program. So please reach out to me. Let's connect. Let's see what the best fit for you is so that you don't have to live life with those fears anymore, so that things can happen, normal, natural things can happen, and they don't take you 20 steps back from where you were, especially if you're in a space of being aware of this and have already done a lot of work to heal or trying to heal. Maybe it's meditations, affirmations, journaling, and you're still not where you want to be because you're paralyzed by those fears. Then let's connect. So thank you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this video on self-defeating beliefs and emotophobia, and look forward to connecting with you very soon.